Hello everyone, my name is Akif and today we're going to discuss the pre-release material of November 2019, both for IGCSE and GCSE Computer Science. Okay, so this is a pretty simple exam comparatively. Now, the summary of what this question is asking is that we have a couple of colors of slabs, okay, then we have certain depths and we have shapes and we have dimension for each shape. Now in the first task we have to calculate the price of 20 slabs, okay, so whatever the characteristics are. So for example, if I select gray, depth 38, it says shape is a square with these dimensions, then it should return me a price based on that. Now some things worth noticing here are that for a gray concrete, the price is $0.05 for per each 100,000 millimeter cube, okay, and red and green concrete, whoever buys them will have to pay 10 more percent. So let me open my notes. Yes, so basically for every 100,000 meter cube you'll have to pay $0.05 by default, okay, that's the minimum that you have to pay for every millimeter cube of the unit. Now if you buy red or green, then what's gonna happen is you'll always calculate the gray cost, okay, or you can call it the default cost, and you'll in case of red or green, what you'll do is you'll multiply it by 10%, and that is basically finding the increase percentage, and you'll add it by the gray cost, okay, plus GC. And similarly the same here for custom. It's written in the question paper. Let me show you that for custom the setup fee is initially $5, and then you have to pay 15% more than the price for gray. So if we have this price for the gray cost and for the gray concrete, then we take 15% of that and we add the previous gray cost to find the new custom cost, and we'll add the $5 of setup, which is a mandatory fees as mentioned in the question. We have to find the price of 20 slabs. So these are the shapes I made. So we have to find volumes, okay, because the unit is in millimeter cube. This is very basic physics. So they have given you these dimensions. So the first one is always the length, this is the width. So if you multiply it by the depth, you'll get the volume, okay. So that's how we will find the volumes. So we'll multiply all the dimensions by the depth. Now we have something called round, okay, and we are given the diameter. Now you should know that the area of a round shape or a circle is pi r square, or it is pi d by 2 square, which is diameter by 2, okay. So the diameter here is 300, so in our case this would turn to 150, so pi 150 square. So that would be the area. Now you multiply it by depth again and you'll get the volume, okay. So let's begin the first task. Okay, so I have already done this in Python. Yes, so this is the task one, okay, it's fully functional. Let me just quickly show you. So if I select red slab, I enter 45 depth, shape can be square. Okay, so I miswrote, so red 45 square, I say 450 into 450, and it calculates the cost for 20 red or green slabs because they have the same, they'll always have the same price, okay. So I have already done this in Python. I'll give the link in the description as well. Now if we go to the actual pseudocode, so let's start discussing this. Alright, so what we have here is, first of all, some of these variables would be used in the following tasks as well, okay, so don't get confused by them. First of all, the most important part is declaration of the variables by their types, okay. So I have string, color, dimensions, cost for 100k, real volume, all of that, okay. So in this part we'll be using these one, okay, and color as well. So real is basically a float number, okay, so something that has decimals. And then I have price of 20, which would be used in the first part to find the total price. The choice, I'll explain what it is. Depth, slab count, that is initially 20. Now so we have to enter the depth, okay, so it must be 38 or 45 as it's mentioned here, so you have it here. Okay, so 38 or 45. So this is basically a small check that will say that if the depth is not equal to 38 or depth is not equal to 45, then you'll have to re-enter the depth. Okay, so you have to add a correct value. Now after that, we have these three shapes that I'm going to ask the user to input. So I say please input one of these shapes. Okay, so by the way, this is the whole text that would be shown on the screen, and comma with the variable. This would be the variable in which the value would be stored. Okay, so whatever you input at this point would be saved inside shape, and we declared shape. No, we didn't. Okay, so shape should go here as string, and this should be empty for now. Alright, so sorry, yes, so now if the shape is square, now let's see what we have here. Okay, so if the shape is square, these are the two dimensions that can have 1 and 2. Okay, so 600 by 600 or 450 square. So what I ask the user is that you can enter one of these. Okay, so the first is 600 by 600 and the second option is 450 by 450. Now I get the input from the user, and if the choice is not either of them, I'll ask the user to input it again. Otherwise, if it is the first choice, I'll simply multiply it by depth, and if it is second, I'll still multiply it by depth. Why? Because I have to find the volume. Okay, so as I mentioned before, so this is your shape, this is your length, your width, and if you multiply it by depth, you'll get the volume. Okay, alright, so this is exactly what we are repeating for the next two shapes. So I won't go into the detail of that. You can already see. So for example, if let's go to circle. So for circle, I have the diameter 300 of 450. So if else if, so if both of these conditions aren't true, if I have round here, then so what I'll choose is I'll choose one of the diameters, 300 or 450. So again, the value, the check to verify if the option is correct. Now in the case statement, so the first case is if the choice is 1, since it's triggered by the choice variable. So if the choice is 1, so pi r square. Okay, this is basically, yeah, so this is basically pi r square, which I mentioned before. So 300 by 2 is your radius now, multiplied by pi value, which is 3.14 we are assuming, and the depth, whatever the depth is we selected above, it could be 38 or it could be 45. Okay, and based on the option, so we'll get the volume of the circle as well. So this is what's happened so far. Okay, so we found the volume of the shape, we have taken in account the depth, and that's all what we have done. Okay, now simply, so before I end this if statement, so I'm checking for all the shapes. Now if there is no round, there is no square, there is no rectangle, then I have to tell the user to please enter a valid shape from these options. Okay, now what's happening here is this. So if you look at the question, it clearly says that the details of the slab chosen and the price for a batch should be displayed. So we have to show the 4 details. Okay, so we have the color, depth, shape, and the size of the shape. So we have to display all 4 of them. Now we can obviously do these 3 with variables, but this is a fixed thing. Okay, this is basically a string, so a set of characters, that's what it is. So what I'm doing is I'm checking that if the user had selected shape and if he had chosen 1, so 1 is this, so 600 by 600, then my dimension would be 600 by 600. Okay, otherwise it would be 450 by 450. Now why I'm not checking for choice is equal to 2, because I have already ensured it here that where is choice. Okay, so I've already ensured it here by this check. So down in that part of the code, it is confirmed that the choice would be either 1 or 2, so we don't need to check for 2. Okay, similarly, if the user selected rectangle, so it could be only one of these dimensions, so I'm again checking for that. If the user selected the first option, then this, otherwise 600 into 450. By the way, dimension is a string, you can clearly see the quotation marks. Okay, so this is the dimensions. Okay, this is the string, I have an empty string that I declared in the start. Now I'll end if, okay, as always we end our if statements with an end if in case of pseudocode. And this is the actual, the most important part of the exam. So very simple mathematics. Let me show you. So the question says, okay, so sorry. So in the question, so what's happening in line 82 is we have found a volume. Okay, so for example, I had 450 by 450 square, okay, and I multiplied it by the depth, whatever it was. Let's assume it was 45. So now I have the whole volume. Now in the question it's clearly mentioned that for every 100,000 millimeter cube you have to pay $0.05. okay, so it's pretty understandable that we'll be dividing our this cost by this value, okay, by 100,000. So this would give us total chunks that we'll have to pay for every 100,000. okay, so once you get the value, so this would be the formula if I write it properly. So this would be volume divided by 100,000 multiplied by 0.05. okay, so this is your the chunk of volume for every 100,000 millimeter cube, and this is the default rate, okay, for the gray concrete. So this is how you calculate. This is exactly what I've done here, nothing difficult. Okay, so this is the gray price. Now in the question we have been told that if we select the green or the red concrete, then we are charged 10% more on the gray concrete. okay, so you have to keep that in mind. And for the custom you have to pay $5 plus 15% off, additional 15% off the gray concrete. So now in the final step of this question, what I'm doing is I'm just asking for the color of the slab, okay, and I'm saving it inside color. So this is the variable here. So I'm starting here a case statement. Okay, so I missed the case color off. Okay, so color, since it's our variable of concern, and I'll have to indent this. Perfect. Now if the color is gray, so my price of 20, okay, so the price of 20 is basically the total price of the slab. Okay, so I'm using a common variable because obviously we have to return it at the end, we have to print it. So price of 20. So the slab count is initially 20. For this question I've set it to 20. You can use 20 directly here as well, no worries. So you multiply 20 by the gray price, and where do we get the gray price from here? Okay, so the price that we got here, this price was for one slab. Okay, this was for one slab, this whole thing. Now if you multiply it by 20, you get the price for 20 slabs. Okay, not $20, this is the price for 20 slabs. So this is exactly what I've done here. I have multiplied it by 20, the price of one slab. Now for the red part and the green part, it's going to be the same. So like I mentioned before, you have 10% of the gray concrete. So for the gray concrete you have to take 10%, so 10% is basically 0.1. so 0.1 multiplied by the gray concrete rate, or whatever your variable name is, plus you add the gray concrete's original value. So in this way you'll get the increased percentage or the additional amount that you have to pay above the gray concrete for your red or blue, sorry, red or green. Okay, similarly we just copy paste the above line for the green. Okay, so slab count 20 multiplied by, so gray price is firstly multiplied by 0.1, that is your 10%, and then it's added to the original price, and then we multiply it by the slab count. And similarly for the custom, like I mentioned before, so you have to pay upfront $5 and then you have to pay 15% additional. So this is what's happening here. So you pay 15% additional, you add it to the in original price, and then you add $5 of setup over that, and then you finally multiply it by 20 to get the price of 20 slabs that would be custom made. Okay, and if none of the cases are true, I'm just writing and I'm just showing an error. Okay, I'm printing an error. And finally, since the question asked us to display all the details and the price of 20, so I have printed all of them. So I have the color, depth, shape, the dimension, which we got from above here, okay, by writing all the conditions manually, and then finally the total cost of 20 slabs, which is price of 20, which you can clearly see highlighted here. Okay, so this was task 1 of the pre-release material. Simple, no issues at all. And so this is the Python code for this. I have used a list. So what I'm doing is I'm basically checking for every time if the color entered is not part of the list, then it shows the error. Okay, and the reason I'm using continue is to repeat the loop until the input is actually correct. Pretty much the same thing as the pseudocode you can see here. So I'm multiplying the dimensions with the depth to find the volume, and this is the price part. So again, so 20 the slab count, which is multiplied by the 10% of the original gray price. Similarly for custom, I'm doing the same, and here I'm calling the function because in this part I made it a function. Okay, so that's the first part. Thank you.